Hi, welcome to the video tutorial Hibernate many-to-many mapping example using annotations. Throughout this video, you will learn how to code Java entity classes to map a many-to-many relationship in the database using Hibernate framework. I am Nam Haming from CodeJava.net. Suppose that in the database we have a many-to-many relationship that looks like this. We have the tables, groups, and users. A group can have one or more users, and a user can belong to one or more groups. So the entity relationship between the groups and users tables is many-to-many implemented and denoted by an intermediate table users underscore groups here. And in the Java side, we have group objects and user objects. For example, the group one object can refer to one or more user objects, user 1, user 2, user 3. And a user object, for example, user 1 can refer to one or more group objects, group 1, group 3, group 2. So throughout this video tutorial, I will guide you how to code a Java entity class T to map the many-to-many entity relationships in the database using Hibernate framework with the JPA annotations. To demonstrate many-to-many mapping using Hibernate framework, we will be creating a Java project using the following technologies: Hibernate framework core, JPA annotation to annotate entity classes, MySQL JDBC driver to connect to MySQL database, and make sure that you have the following software programs installed on the computer: Java Development Kit JDK, MySQL database, both server and workbench tool, and Eclipse IDE for development. First, let's create a new Java Maven project using Eclipse IDE. Go to menu file, new Maven project. Check this option to create a simple project. Next, and enter the group ID is net.codejava. Artifact ID is Hibernate many-to-many. And the project name is Hibernate many-to-many example. Description: Hibernate many-to-many example using annotation. Click finish, and here we go. Java Maven project got created here. Update the Java version to 1.8. And to use the Hibernate framework and MySQL database, we need to declare two dependencies in the Maven project file form.xml. The first dependency is for Hibernate framework core dependency. The group ID is org.hibernate. Artifact ID is Hibernate -core, and version is 5.4.4.final, which is the latest version of Hibernate core at the time I'm writing this code. And the second dependency is MySQL JDBC driver dependency. The group ID is MySQL. Artifact ID is MySQL connector Java, and version is 5.1.46, which is compatible to the version of MySQL database server running on my computer. Okay, save. And you see Maven automatically downloads also requires Java files for Hibernate core here and MySQL connector Java JDBC driver. And next we need to create a Hibernate configuration file to specify the database connection information. So create a new XML file under this directory source slash main slash resources new as a XML file. Next, and the Hibernate configuration file name is hibernate.cfg.xml. Finish. The root element is Hibernate dash configuration and session dash factory to declare a session factory for Hibernate, and we specify some properties for the database connection. Property name equal connection dot URL. The URL for MySQL database server is JDBC colon MySQL colon // and the host name of the database server. I'm running MySQL database server on the same machine, so the host name is localhost with default port number 306 and the database schema is test. And you see this is MySQL Workbench tool that allows us to connect and manage MySQL database, and I will be using the best database schema. So in the database connection URL, the name of the database schema is test here, and the next property is for the username connection, not username. I'm using the username root and password. And for MySQL database, we need to specify database direct class direct of dot hibernate dot direct dot MySQL 5 direct, and we want to show SQL statements, so we need to specify the property name equal to hibernate dot show underscore SQL value true. And we also want to format the SQL statements so we can easily see the statements. So we use the property hibernate dot format underscore SQL true. And that's it for the Hibernate configuration file. In this project, we will be using Hibernate forward engineering, meaning that we will be create Java entity classes first, and then let Hibernate to generate the tables in the database. So here we specify the mapping classes to the entity classes. Mapping class equal net.code.java.user, and the second entity class is a group. And now for forward engineering, we create a Java entity classes first. So create a new Java class here. Package is net.code.java. Name is user. and the second class is a group. Group. You see in the database design, the user table has the following columns: user ID, username, password, and email. So we will be creating corresponding fields in the user class. And for the group table, it contains only group ID and name. So for the group entity class, we have the field group ID and name of the group, and we generate the getters, setters, and constructors for this entity class. Getter and setters. Select all, generate, and constructor. Source generate constructor using fields. And generate a no argument constructor. Okay. And we format the code. Okay. This is a entity class group, and the user class. We have the ID field, integer ID, username, password. For simplicity, we don't create the field email, just user ID, username, and password for the sake of simplicity. And we generate constructors and check ID. We will be using constructors to create new object and create a no argument constructor. Okay. And generate getters and setters. Select all, generate, and format the code. Okay. And to map a many-to-many relationship in each entity class, we need to have a collection to another entity class. For the group entity class, we must have a collection of user objects that refer to the user entity class, and vice versa. In the user entity class, we need to have a collection to group entity classes. And in one table, we use the annotation many-to-many and join table, and in the another entity class we need to use a many-to-many annotation. Now in the group class, group entity class here, we must annotate this class using the entity annotation. This is from Java x.persistent, which means from the API, and we specify the table name. Table equal groups. Table name equal groups. And we need to have a collection. A set collection refers to that contains user objects here. Private set user equal new set, and for the ID field we need to use the ID annotation to mark this as a primary key of the table in the database, and the column name is name equal group underscore ID, and we need to specify the generated value annotation to specify that the values of this field will be automatically generated and incremented by the database itself, with the strategy is generation type identity. And for the name column, we specify the mapping name in the database is also the name, and we specify the length of the data type for this uh, field is, for example, 64 characters maximum. And for the set, for the collection to use the objects, we need to use many to many annotation. With cascade type is cascade type all. So all the changes we made to this to a parent object will be updated to the children objects. For example, when we proceed a group object, or the belonging user objects will be persisted as well, and we must specify a join table. The join table is actually the information about the intermediate table here. This is a join table to implement many to many relationship in the database. So the name of this join table is users underscore groups, and we specify the join column. The join column is name is group underscore ID, and since it is a many to many relationship, we need to specify the inverse join column on another table. Join column is here. The inverse join column is user underscore ID in the user table. That's it for the group entity class. And next we come to annotate the user entity class. Save this file first using the entity annotation and table. The annotation name is users, and for the ID field we use ID annotation, and column name in the database is user underscore ID, and generated value with strategy is identity. So the values of this column will be automatically generated by the database. And for the column username, we just specify the length is 24, We don't use the name attribute, so the field name will be used as the column name. And we also specify the nullable property is false, meaning that the value of this column must be not null. And do the same, similar for the password field length about, for example, 16 nullable false. And we need to declare set up if group to refer to a collection of group objects. I will set groups equal new hash set. And on this side, on the user side, we just use a many-to-many annotation, many-to-many annotation with the property map by is users. Okay, so that's for the entity class users. And now let's write a test program to test out the many-to-many entity relationship we have made so far between the user and group entity classes. So we create a new Java class here, Hibernate many-to-many test. Check this option to create the main method. And first we need to create the Hibernate session factory. We need to create a standard registry, standard service registry equal new standard service registry builder. And configure and build. And then we create a new session factory equal new metadata sources with the registry and view metadata. And build session factory. So to use the Hibernate, we need to create a session factory from a registry, and then we open the session factory session. Open a session, sorry, session from the session factory. Open session, and then we can create new objects, new entity objects to be persisted into the database. For now, just do nothing. We open and then we close the session. Because we want to Hibernate to create the tables in the database. And factory close. That's it. And to use forward engineering with Hibernate, we need to specify a special attribute in the Hibernate configuration file, which is the property name is Hibernate dot htm to dbl.o2, and we specify the value create to let Hibernate create the tables from the entity classes. And now let's run the test program. You see in the database schema test, we don't have any tables. Now let's run this program. Run as Java application. You see, Hibernate prints some SQL statements here. First, it tries to drop the table if exists groups user underscore group. Then it executes the SQL statement to create the table groups first. You see group ID, name, primary key, and then it creates the table users, user ID, password name, primary key, and then it creates the join table users underscore group, and then it alters the table users group to add the foreign key constraint to the user table and group table you see here. Now let's check the database. Refresh all, and you see 3 tables got created by Hibernate perfectly. You see the groups table with columns, group ID name, the users table with columns, user underscore ID, password name, and the join table. The intermediate table to implement the many relationship with two foreign key, group underscore ID, and user ID. And of course, all these tables have no data. Select rows group empty, you see, and select row from user, you see, empty, and select rows from the join table users underscore group, you see, empty. And now let's update the test program to write code to insert some rows into the tables in the database. In other words, we proceed some entity objects to the session, session. So we will be proceeding 2 group objects and 2 3 user objects. Group 1 equal new. The name is editor, for example, and we have 2 groups. Group 2 is admin, and we create 3 user objects. User 1 equal new. Username is password, name is m, password is 1 2 3 4 5 6. And because the entity relationship between group and user is many to many, we need to add a group objects to user and by vector add user objects to group. So in the user class we can write another method to add a group object to this class. Public void add a group object group, and this group collection add group, and do the similar for the group entity class here. Public void add user object, this user collection users add user. Okay, and here we get 3 user objects user 1, user 2, and user 3. User 2, user 3, user 2, username is Tommy. Password hello world, and user 3 username is Johnny. Password awesome. And we want that the group 1 editor contains user 1 and user 2. So group 1 add user 1 and add user 2, and group 2 contains user 3 and user 1. Group 2 and user 2 and group 2 add user 3. And we also add a group to the user. So user 1 here, we need to add to the group 1. And for user 2 here, we add to the group 1. And similarly for the user 2, need to add to the group 2. And user 3, add to the group 2. Okay, and we save two group objects session. We need to begin a transaction first, and then we save session, save group 1, and save group 2, save 2, and finally we commit the transaction session at transaction commit. We don't have to save user objects because in the mapping we use a cascade type all here. So when we proceed the group objects, the belonging user object will be persisted as well. Okay, now let's run this program. Before that, you see that all tables are empty. User group empty. Now let's run this program. And because we have the tables already generated in the database, so we change the value of this property to none. So Hibernate will not touch the database. We just insert data none here and run this program again. Successfully, and you see Hibernate prints SQL insert statement. Insert into groups table first, user table, and it insert values to the join table user groups here. Now let's check the database. Refresh the groups table, and you see two groups created here, editor and admin. And let's refresh the users table. You see 3 users created here. Now SM, Tommy, and Johnny. And let's check the join table. You see the join table has values here to also associate users with groups. For example, the username SM ID1 belonging to group 1. You see here. And the user ID2 belonging to group ID1 and ID2. Group ID1 and ID2, editor and admin. So we have successfully implemented many-to-many mapping using annotations with Hibernate framework. You see, Hibernate makes it very easy to proceed to implement many and too many relationship. So far, you have learned how to map many-to-many entity relationship using Hibernate framework with JPI annotations. JPI annotation you see here, and forward engineering to generate tables from the entity classes. I hope you will find this video tutorial helpful. Please like, comment, and share this video. Thank you.